Good morning, everyone. Today's topic for PG activity is parasites in pathology. I'm Dr. Kavita Pawar. So first, what are the parasites? They are the living organisms which depend on living host for their nourishment and survival. We will see the historical aspect. Anthony von Leeuwenhoek in 1681 first introduced single lens microscope and observed Giardia in his own stools, and Monson demonstrated role of mosquitoes in filariasis, and that was the evidence of vector transmission. Parasites are broadly classified into two categories as protozoa, which are unicellular, and multicellular helminths. Protozoa are further subclassified into four classes depending upon their organ of locomotion as amoebae, flagellates, sporozoa, and ciliates. And helminths are subdivided into three classes as nematodes, cystodes, and trematodes based on their morphology. Nematodes are unsegmented, they are cylindrical worms, and cystodes are tapeworms, multisegmented, and trematodes are flukes, they are unsegmented. So we will see the all examples of this one by one. So first, Entamoeba histolytica. Entamoeba histolytica causes intestinal amoebiasis and extraintestinal amoebiasis. Intestinal amoebiasis manifests as amoebic colitis and amoeboma, whereas extraintestinal amoebiasis, where amoebae infect the other organs, so they are named as hepatic, pulmonary, cutaneous, genitourinary, and metastatic amoebiasis. So next, this is amoebic. We will see amoebic colitis. So amoebic ulcer is typically seen in the amoebic colitis, which is flash shaped and confined to the colon and most numerous in the rectum. Here we can see the multiple raised nodules with pouting edges, and on cross section their shape is mouth and neck being narrow and wider base, giving it a typical flash shape appearance. So this is microscopic picture. Here we can see the amoebic trophozoites has invaded the mucosa. They burrow down into the submucosa and causing necrosis. And here amoebic trophozoites can be seen microscopically. They mimic macrophages. And PAS stain is a special stain used. So here we can see the PAS positive amoebic trophozoites.
Just one to know in that last one.
Yes, ma'am.
If you look at the around the individual trophozoites or pentagonal, you see the clear space.
Yes.
And that is because of the cytolysis. This is one of the clues that you get.
Yes.
So around individual trophozoites, you get the clear space.
Yes.
And that halo will be seen. And of course, you will be getting useful things also.
Yes. Thank you. So next is amoebic liver abscess. Here in this gross picture, as we can see, the center of the abscess contains a thick chocolate brown pus, which is also called as Anchovy sauce pus, which is necrotic tissue. And microscopically, here the RBCs phagocytosed by the amoebae are seen. Next is Naegleria fowleri. It causes the primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, which clinically mimics bacterial meningitis, and it is often fatal. So the amoeba invade the nasal mucosa, pass through the olfactory nerve branches in the cubiform plate, then to meninges, and then it affects the brain. And laboratory diagnosis is done by CSF examination, and after autopsy, trophozoites can be demonstrated in brain histologically by H&E section and immunofluorescence. Then acanthamoeba infection usually occurs in patients with immunodeficiencies, and it presents chiefly as two chronic conditions as acanthamoeba keratitis and granulomatous amoebic encephalitis. And laboratory diagnosis of amoebic keratitis is done by corneal scraping by wet mount, histology, and culture. And that of granulomatous amoebic encephalitis, it is done by CSF examination. So next is Balantidium coli. In a healthy individual, it is the lumen. It lives as a lumen commensal, and in immunocompetent person, it causes either asymptomatic cases in asymptomatic cases mainly. And clinical disease occurs only when the resistance of the host is lowered by the predisposing factors such as malnutrition or diabetes mellitus. And Ballontidius resembles amoebiasis, causing diarrhea or prime dysentery and other abdominal symptoms. But the difference is that unlike E. histolytica, B. coli, Ballontidium coli does not invade the liver or any other extraintestinal sites. And Tropocytes of Ballontidium coli burrow into the intestinal mucosa, set up colonies, and initiate inflammatory reaction that leads to mucosal ulcers and submucosal abscess. Laboratory diagnosis is done by stool examination, biopsy, and culture. Here in this image, a bowel wall, it shows the large, large-sized tropocytes and kidney bean-shaped nucleus. We can see, and here cilia can be seen. So next is Giardia lumlea. It is named Giardia after Professor Giard of Paris and lumlea after Professor Lambel of Prague, who described the parasite first. And infective forms are ellipsoid cyst. The clinical features, it causes recurrent diarrhea, dull epigastric pain, and malabsorption. And laboratory diagnosis done by microscopic demonstration of tropocytes or cysts in stool, and serodiagnosis by ELISA and entero test. Here, this is a stool smear. Tropocytes of Giardia lumlea are seen. They are pyriform shaped, having two nuclei, and median bodies here. With median bodies is seen. And this image, cysts of Giardia lumlea can be seen. They have oval shape, round to oval shape, smooth cyst wall, and axoneme. Next here is duodenal biopsy, where Giardia lumlea can be seen in the luminal border, and on higher magnification, they are seen as a flattened structures. So next is Trichomonas vaginalis. When there is a typical case when young female comes with a foul smelling vaginal discharge, and on per speculum examination we get a strawberry cervix, and on pap smear, when we examine the pap smear, there is lot of inflammatory background and squamous cells with perinuclear halo and an elongated hyperchromatic nucleus surrounded by Trichomonas vaginalis are seen. So next is trypanosoma. There are two types: American trypanosomiasis and African trypanosomiasis. So American trypanosomiasis is caused by Trypanosoma cruzi, and it is also called as Chagas disease, which is limited to South America, particularly Brazil. And Carlos Chagas in 1909 in Brazil accidentally found this trypanosome in the intestine of the redwood bug, which is the vector of this disease. It manifests as acute Chagas disease and chronic Chagas disease, and laboratory diagnosis is done by peripheral blood smear examination. Here, in this microscopic image, trypomastigotes of Trypanosoma cruzi are seen, and posterior located and large side of the kinetoplast is seen, and they are characteristically C-shaped. So acute Chagas disease. In acute Chagas disease, cardiac damage results from direct invasion of the myocardial cells by the organism and subsequent inflammation, while in chronic Chagas disease, which occurs in 5 to 10% of the acute Chagas disease cases, damage to myocardial cells and to conductance pathways cause a dilated cardiomyopathy and cardiac arrhythmias. And in addition, damage to mesenteric plexus cause dilatation of the colon, that's megacolon and esophagus. And chronic Chagas cardiomyopathy is often treated by cardiac transplantation. Here, in microscopic picture, mastigotes of Trypanosoma cruzi in heart muscle cells can be seen on H&E staining. So next is African trypanosomiasis. In East Africa, it is caused by the Trypanosoma brucei while in West Africa, it is caused by the Trypanosoma brucei gambians. And African trypanosomes cause sustained or intermittent fevers, lymphadenopathy, splenomegaly, and progressive brain dysfunction. So it causes the sleeping sickness, cachexia death. It has a unique mechanism of pathogenesis because tropocytes of these African trypanosomes are covered by the variant surface glycoproteins against which the host produces antibodies. But some of these tropocytes escape that immune response. They undergo genetic rearrangement and produce a different clone of variant surface glycoprotein on their surface. And after that, host till the host produces different set of antibodies to that newer clone. The some tropocytes will escape again that immune response, and another new clone will be formed until, so the cycle continues. So there is intermittent fever, and finally they invade the central nervous system. And lab diagnosis is done by peripheral blood smear examination. Here in this blood smear we can see the slender bloodstream parasites of African trypanosomiasis. Next is Plasmodium species. So Plasmodium causes the disease malaria, and the causative agents, there are four species: Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale cause benign tertian malaria, and Plasmodium falciparum cause malignant tertian malaria, while Plasmodium malariae cause benign quartan malaria. Benign tertian and benign quartan malaria means the fever spike comes after 48 hours, but in benign quartan malaria, fever spike comes after 72 hours. But Plasmodium falciparum causes malignant tertian malaria because it leads to fatal complications like cerebral malaria, septicemic malaria, black water fever, pulmonary edema, acute renal failure, hypoglycemia, and severe anemia. So we will study the life cycle of Plasmodium species. First, when the female Anopheles mosquito bites the human, then they inject the sporozoites during the bloody meal, and then sporozoites infect the liver cells. And in hepatocytes, they undergo the pre-erythrocytic schizogony, and schizons are formed. Then the ruptured schizons, merozytes are liberated, and the merozytes invade the RBCs, where they undergo successive developmental stages. First, early tropocyte is formed, and then late tropozoite, which develops into mature schizon, and mature schizon again burst into releasing merozytes, and this cycle continues. While some undergo gametogony, forming female and male gametocytes. And again, when this mosquito bites the human, then again the cycle continues. So this is the chart showing different forms of the four species. So first, ring form. In Plasmodium falciparum, the main feature is we get multiple rings, and chromatin dots can be one or two. But in Plasmodium vivax, there will be one chromatin dot and a single ring will be seen. And in Plasmodium falciparum, schizons they have the more number of Shabnose dots, but schizons are not seen because in Plasmodium falciparum, the schizons adhere to the endothelium of the venules. So we generally don't get schizons in the peripheral blood smear. And gametocytes of Plasmodium falciparum are typically banana shaped, while that of Plasmodium vivax are round to oval. Oh, sorry. So laboratory diagnosis of malaria. It is done by the demonstration of malarial parasite in thick and thin blood smear examination by field stain, Leishman stain, GIMSA, or GSB stain, that is just be done fluorescence staining and quantitative Buffy-Coat smear. Third is sero diagnosis by indirect assay and indirect fluorescent antibody test and ELISA. Fourth is rapid antigen detection test, which are parasite YEP test and dual antigen tests. Parasite YEP test, it detects antigen only against the Plasmodium falciparum, while dual antigen test can be used to detect both Plasmodium falciparum and Plasmodium vivax. Newer techniques are DNA probe and polymerase chain reaction. So, in cases of Plasmodium falciparum infections, we have to give the parasite density, because high parasite density is associated with severe disease, and the degree of parasitemia, when it exceeds the 10%, it is a then exchange transfusion is given. And how do we calculate the parasite density? In thick smear, total leukocyte count per microliter is multiplied by number of parasites in 200 WBCs. And we don't count gametocytes, as they are not infective stages. And in thin smear, number of parasites among 1000 RBCs counted and reported as percentage. So next, this is the histological section of brain from a case of cerebral malaria. The brown hemazoin pigment can be seen here, and on higher magnification, blood vessels are clogged with infected red blood cells, and the black hemazoin pigment in the parasite cytoplasm can be seen. Next is Babesia species. It has Babesia microti and Babesia divergens, two species, and Babesia microti survives well in refrigerated blood. Therefore, we get several cases of transfusion acquired Babesiasis. And Babesia parasitize red cells and cause fever and hemolytic anemia. Symptoms are mild, except in debilitated and splenectomized individuals who develop severe, potentially fatal parasitemias. And lab diagnosis is done by peripheral blood smear examination. It on peripheral blood smear examination is resembles to the Plasmodium species, but here in Babesia we don't get hemazoin pigment, and we get a distinctive Maltese cross form. And these are the ring forms. Next is Toxoplasma gondii. It manifests as congenital toxoplasmosis, and severity of the infection is inversely proportional to the time. It is transmitted in the first trimester, it will be more severe disease, and it manifests as chorioretinitis, cerebral calcification, convulsions, strabismus, hydrocephalus, blindness, mental retardation. Next is acquired toxoplasmosis, where it causes lymphadenopathy, and cervical lymphadenopathy is the common. Fever, headache, myalgia, and splenomegaly. Next is it can cause ocular toxoplasmosis, manifesting in the form of uveitis, choroiditis, and chorioretinitis. Then toxoplasmosis in immunocompromised patient is the most serious and fatal, particularly in AIDS. Lab diagnosis is done by microscopy. Tachyzoids and tissue cysts are detected in blood, sputum, and bone marrow aspirates. And staining is done by Giemsa pass and gomerimethylene silver stain. Here, tachyzoids of Toxoplasma gondii are seen in the blood smear. This is Giemsa stain. This is infected host cell where tachyzoids are in the cluster. So this is a microscopic picture, toxoplasmosis lymphadenitis, where we can see the follicular hyperplasia, reactive follicular hyperplasia is there. Monocytoid B cells are pinkish. Monocytoid B cells are there, and histiocytic aggregates. This is the characteristic triad we see in Toxoplasma lymphadenitis. Here on higher magnification, on the upper right side, we can see the monocytoid B cells, which have a moderate amount of pale cytoplasm. And on lower left side, we can see the epithelioid histiocytes are aggregated. This one. So next, we will study the parasites in immunocompromised individuals, because these parasites in immunocompetent individuals either cause asymptomatic disease or they cause mild symptoms. But in immunocompromised patients, they lead to the chronic diarrhea. So first is Cryptosporidium parvum. Its infection is most common in terminal ileum and proximal colon. And lab diagnosis is done by detection of cyst in stool using modified acid-fast stain or immunofluorescence and biopsy specimens. This is acid-fast stain. Cyst can be seen. Here, in the intestinal biopsy, here on the luminal border, there are basophilic round. These are the basophilic round structures. They are seen as basophilic round knob-like structures, and it is also called as blue bead appearance. So next is Isospora belli. It is the coccidian parasite that infects epithelial cells of small intestine. It causes chronic diarrhea and acalculous cholecystitis in AIDS patient, and laboratory diagnosis done by detection of cyst in stool specimen. This is a stool specimen where these cysts are also acid fast. Can we see? Here we can see the cyst in the biopsy specimen near the villus tip. Next is Cyclospora. It causes prolonged diarrhea with abdominal pain, low-grade fever, and fatigue, and it is more severe in immunocompromised patients. Lab diagnosis is done by direct weight mount by demonstration of oocyst in pieces by Gill-Nielsen staining. They are acid-fast and stain red in color, and histopathologically biopsy specimen from jejunum are studied. Here in this jejunal biopsy specimen, we can see the cyst of the Cyclospora. Next is Microsporidia. Microsporidia, it leads to protracted and debilitating diarrhea in 10 to 40% of and lab diagnosis demonstration of spores in stool, urine, CSF, and in small intestine biopsy specimen by special stains such as fast stain, periodic acid stain, and modified trichome stain. Here, microscopic picture where we can see the spores of the Microsporidia. This is modified trichome stain where they are stained pinkish in color. So next is Tinea solium and Tinea saginata. As we all know, Tinea solium is a pork tapeworm and Tinea saginata is a beef tapeworm. And intestinal teniasis can be caused by both Tinea solium and Tinea saginata, manifesting in the form of vague abdominal discomfort, nausea, and diarrhea. And pathogenesis, its pathogenesis like cysticercosis caused by the larval stage of the Tinea solium. It infects the subcutaneous tissues and muscles, where infiltration of neutrophils, eosinophils, and lymphocyte plasma cells is seen. And further, it will lead to fibrosis and larva with eventual calcification. Next is neurocystocercosis. In neurocystocercosis, when the organism invade the central nervous system, it will cause neural symptoms, convulsion, increased intracranial pressure, hydrocephalus, meningoencephalitis, and other neurological disturbances may occur. It also causes ocular cystocercosis. So lab diagnosis. Lab diagnosis of teniasis is done by stool examination. where X can be seen demonstrated in stool, but species identification is not possible. Species identification is done by demonstrating proglottids. Antenna antigen detection, which is a copro antigen, it is a most sensitive method. Serodiagnosis done by ELISA and indirect immunoassay, and molecular diagnosis done by DNA probes and PCR. While in case of cysticercosis, a biopsy is the definitive method of diagnosis. Imaging, it can be diagnosis can be done imaging techniques as X-ray, CT scan, or MRI, and serodiagnosis where antibody detection can be done by ELISA, and antigen detection by ELISA using monoclonal antibodies. So this is a gross picture of neurocystocercosis where the petechial hemorrhages are seen. Here, the neurocystocercosis morphologies, we can see these are the scolex, hooklets, and prominent suckers. And it has a convoluted extensive folding of the spiral canal, and thin wall of the cyst is seen attached to the host tissue. This similarly portion of a cysticercosis cyst in the skin. So next is Echinococcus granulosus. It causes the hydrated disease. It is caused by the ingestion of food contaminated with eggs shed by dogs or foxes. And the most common site of hydrated cyst is the liver, other sites being lung, bone, brain, and other organs. A laboratory diagnosis is done by imaging techniques, examination of aspirated cyst fluid under microscope after trichome staining. These are the gross pictures of hydrated cyst. These two are the gross pictures of hydrated cyst. Here in this, we can see this is the daughter cyst. Here, a hydrated cyst in the eye and hydrated cyst in the heart can be seen. This is a prominent 3 layers of the hydrated cyst are seen. So next is cystosoma. Cystosoma have 3 species: as Cystosoma mansoni, Cystosoma hematobium, and Cystosoma japonicum. It's a cercaria penetrate human skin with the aid of powerful proteolytic enzymes that degrade the keratinized layer. They then go to the peripheral vasculature and lymphatics. From there, they go to the lungs and heart, mesenteric, splanchnic, and portal circulation, where in the liver they cause pipe stem fibrosis of the livers, and granulomas are scattered throughout the liver and the gut. So in Cystosoma hematobium infection, inflammatory cystitis and granulomas appear early, leading to mucosal erosion, and complications are inflammation and fibrosis of urethral wall, leading to obstruction, hydronephrosis, and chronic pyelonephritis. And there is also an association between urinary cystosomiasis and squamous cell carcinoma of the bladder. This is a microscopic picture. Where can we can see the small granulomas. This is the pipe stem fibrosis of the liver caused by the chronic injection of chronic infection of Cystosoma japonicum. In this picture, Cystosoma hematobium X in urethral muscle and submucosa are seen. And here, Cystosoma mansoni X in colon biopsy. Cystosoma mansoni has the terminal spine. Next is trianguloid stercolaris. It causes diarrhea, bloating, and occasionally malabsorption. In immunocompromised host, hyperinfection occurs due to uncontrolled autoinfection leading to fatal disease. And laboratory diagnosis done by direct wet mount of stool, which demonstrate raptiform larvae. Duodenal aspirates or jejunal biopsies. Other methods are stool culture, serology, radiological imaging, and blood examination. Peripheral eosinophilia and raised serum IgE levels are seen. This is the image where Raptiform larva of Strangulus circularis can be seen in the jejunal biopsy. So next is hookworm. There are two species of hookworm are human parasites. First is Ankylostoma duodenale and second is Necator americanus. Hookworms larvae cause ground itch, cutaneous itch, migrants, cutaneous larva migrants and respiratory symptoms. An adult worm causes the hookworm disease, where the adult worm sucks the blood, leading to hypochromic anemia and reddish and blackish stools. So lab diagnosis is done by demonstration of eggs and demonstration of adult in feces, and indirectly by blood examination where microcytic hypochromic anemia and eosinophilia can be seen. This is the decorticated eggs of the hookworm in stool. Next is filarial worm. Female worms are viviparous and give birth to larvae known as microfilariae. They are sheathed or unsheathed, and they have different types of periodicity. Where nocturnal periodicity is shown by Washeria bancropti. Diurnal periodicity is shown by Loa loa, and Onchocerca volvulus is non-periodic. And classification of filaria based on location in body. Lymphatic filariasis caused by Washeria bancropti, Bruguea mellai, and Bruguea timori. Subcutaneous filariasis caused by Loa loa, Onchocerca volvulus, and Mansonia cryptocerca. And serous cavity filariasis caused by Manzanella perstans and Manzanella azardi. So, Washeria bancropti. In India, the endemic areas are mainly along the sea coast and banks of the large rivers, and clinically it causes lymphatic filariasis, which manifests as the acute adenolymphangitis characterized by fever, lymphangitis, lymphedema, and hydrocele and elephantiasis. Lab diagnosis is done by peripheral blood smear examination, urine examination, exudate of lymph files and hydrocele fluid, biopsy, skin test, imaging techniques, and serodiagnosis. Here, on the peripheral blood smear examination, microfilaria can be seen. So next is Onchocerca volvulus. It is the leading cause of preventable blindness in sub-Saharan Africa, and it causes chronic itchy dermatitis, foci of epidermal atrophy, hyperkeratosis, dermal atrophy, and fibrosis. It also causes sclerosing keratitis, and in anterior chamber it causes iridocyclitis and glaucoma, and choroid and retina it causes when it affects the choroid and retina it causes atrophy and loss of vision. Here we can see the various forms of the Onchocerca volvulus, and these are surrounded by a thick fibrous capsule. Next is Entropius vermicularis. It is also called as pinworm or sitworm because of its morphology, and it is considered to be the world's most common parasite, which specifically affects the children. In children, it causes pruritus anni and nocturnal ureasis. In pruritus anni means there will be itching in the perianal region, and in adult, it can cause appendicitis, acute appendicitis. Laboratory diagnosis is done by X can be demonstrated from the swab taken from perianal and perineal skin early in the morning. So here ova of the Entropius vermicularis in the urine sample can be seen. This is the specimen of acute appendicitis where we can see the Entropius vermicularis. They are 4 in number. And on higher magnification, these are the eggs of the Entropius vermicularis. Next is Trichinella spiralis. In human gut, Trichinella spiralis larvae disseminate hematogenously and penetrate muscle cell, causing fever, myalgia, and periorbital edema. Less commonly, larvae lodge into the heart, lungs, and brain, causing dyspnea, encephalitis, and cardiac failure. In heart, it causes patchy interstitial myocarditis. In lungs, it causes focal edema and hemorrhages. And in CNS, it causes diffuse lymphocytic and eosinophilic infiltrate with focal gliosis. Here, we can see the coil-shaped Trichinella spiralis, which multiple coiled Trichinella spiralis we can see. They modifies the muscle layer. They lose striations and it is called as nurse cell. So here are my references. Thank you.